Hello, welcome back, Matt here. I've got another question for you guys today. Are you insured? That's right, today's video is slightly different and we're going to look at the topic of photography insurance or insurance for your photography kit. I should probably put my hands up at this stage and say I am no expert in insurance, and this is just more of a discussion around the topic, and I'll point out some of the key insurances that photographers may need. So I guess one question you may have is, how did I come about talking about photography insurance? The reason this whole video came about is because I think it was last week or the week before, I had to renew my annual photography insurance kind of cover, and that protects my camera equipment and it protects me from claims and liabilities, and we'll cover that a bit more in a second. And I guess it wasn't really the fact that I was just renewing my insurance that made me kind of think. It was more the fact that the prices of film cameras year on year are just kind of going up and up, well, depending on the camera. Some are kind of going gradual. How would you describe it? Some of the less popular, less desirable cameras are kind of going up gradually, or where there's high volumes of those cameras available in the marketplace. I guess a great example could be something like the Nikon FM, Nikon FE2, cameras which were produced in high numbers. The prices of those cameras are kind of going up gradually year on year. That's kind of the best case scenario. If you then look at something like an obvious example, I brought it out again to show you, Leica M6. You'll see why I brought this out in a second. For anybody that's watched the price for Leica M6 in the last few years, it's gone up pretty steep. People are trying to find a cheap solution instead of, say, the Leica M6, and so because they can't buy the Leica M6, they'll buy a similar body, and that pushes the price up of all the similar cameras. So basically the whole market is just, as you know, going up and up and up. I know you know all this already, but I'm just trying to get to the point of why I'm making this video. And in that example, I was just talking about used cameras and film cameras. Now, of course, modern cameras can also be very expensive. Again, if you like the Leica brand, you'll know that cameras are not particularly cheap. The digital cameras and the film cameras. I'm not too up to speed on the cost of Fuji cameras and Sony cameras. Obviously, digital Hasselblad's really expensive. Anything medium format digital will be pretty expensive, and then any professional bodies, so your top of the range Nikons, top of the range Canons, they're all going to be reasonably expensive. And then that's also true for kind of the best, most desirable lenses for each camera lineup. So your best Nikon glass, your best Canon glass, Fuji glass, Sony glass. Normally the really fast lenses tend to be really desirable and tend to have a really high price tag. Again, a great example, like an Octolux. That if you're a photographer that enjoys high-end camera kit, it doesn't matter if you enjoy Sony kit, Fuji kit, Leica kit, Hasselblad, vintage stuff, there's a really high chance that what's in your camera bag is quite high value, and quite is normally a massive understatement. By the time you've added up a camera body, a camera lens, and then potentially a second camera body and a second camera lens, you're going to have a fair amount of money's worth in your camera bag on your person. And if you're kind of walking the streets of, I don't know, wherever you live, London, doing street photography, if you're like me, you probably forget that you're carrying the equivalent of a massive wad of cash in your bag in potentially a dodgy street or a less desirable part of town or whatever. I'm so kind of blinkered on my photography, and also I was lucky enough to purchase a lot of my film cameras at a lower price some years ago. And then when it comes to do my insurance, I have to look at the current cost of these cameras, and that's when it really hit home quite how expensive some of this kit is. I know it sounds really obvious, but I'm not the smartest. So let's just give some real world examples to kind of give you an idea of what might be in your camera bag. Now, I know this channel attracts quite a lot of Leica M shooters, obviously with a blog called MrLeica.com. So in this example, let's say you live in the UK, you've gone to London for the day to do some street photography. You've got in your person a Leica M10 with a Leica Sumlux 50mm f1.4 spherical lens. I know it's probably not a street shooter lens, but bear with me, just an example. And that's your digital setup. And then as your film setup, you have a Leica M6 and perhaps something like a Summicron 35mm f2 lens for something wider. So you've got two bodies, two lenses. Have you ever stopped and added up quite how much that bag of four things costs? I did the maths, as they say. Leica M10, roughly £4,000. Leica Sumlux 50mm 1.4 spherical, roughly £3,000. Leica M6, roughly £2,000. It's slightly more, but I'm trying to keep it simple. And Leica Summicron 35mm f2, roughly £2,000. The content of your small camera bag, which could be a Billigan bag, which makes it even more expensive, is £11,000. So you're pretty much walking around with a briefcase full of cash, hoping that nobody's going to take it off you. Personally, I've never really thought of it like that, but when you kind of sit down and think, it's like, that's pretty crazy. And then if, for example, you're planning to do some pano shots, you may have the Hasselblad X-Pan in your bag, another £3,000. or perhaps you're shooting some medium format and you might have, I don't know, the Mamiya 7. That's another £3,000. So as soon as you've got, say, a modern Leica with a fast or desirable lens, and then maybe a backup camera, and then maybe a film camera if you shoot film and digital, the same as me. Obviously, this is all an extreme example. I'm sure some people are happy with a £100 Nikon and a £50 lens. And I'm not trying to discriminate against anybody. I'm just trying to relate to some Leica shooters which may happen to have this type of kit on their person. Or the people that carry a bag full of vintage cameras, which again, the price has gone up so dramatically that you may have paid £2,000 for your bag of 4 cameras, and now they're worth £10,000. Again, an extreme example, but it depends on which cameras and which lenses you bought. So with that example covered, this is where the insurance part comes in and is really important. So that brings us back to the question at the start of the video: do you have photography insurance? Now again, I'm no expert, but for my photography I have 3 types of insurance, and we'll go through each of those in turn. If you are a hobbyist photographer and you only shoot for fun and you never get paid, the main insurance you need is your photography equipment insurance. That being insuring your camera kit, your cameras, your lenses and things like that. That's fairly self-explanatory, but again, it goes into more depth. Depending on who you get your photography insurance cover with, you can insure the value of your camera equipment as at the new price, so replace new for new. So for example, you bought a Leica M10 and it cost £4,000. You insure it for £4,000, and then if you lost it, the insurers would replace like for like and give you £4,000 towards a new camera. Option 1. And option 2 is you can insure it for the second hand value. So if you've had, say, like an M240 for, let's say, 5 years, and the value is now £2,500, but you originally paid £4,000, you can either insure it for the price you pay for it new, which was in this example £4,000, or you can insure it for the current market price, which could be, say, £2,500. The difference being, if you insure it for the lower value, you're going to get less money back from the insurers if you happen to lose your camera, but at the same time you'll pay a lower premium, so your insurance cover for your equipment will be lower. So that's photography equipment insurance. I'll cover this in a bit more detail in a second, so stay with me. And I know it's not the most exciting topic, but I think it is quite important, and if it's never something you've considered, then today could be a good time to look to get specific camera insurance. Talking of specific camera insurance, when I first started with my photography hobby, an ex-girlfriend kindly bought me a point and shoot camera for one Christmas, and I think by the Easter I'd already moved on to my next camera, and then by that following Christmas I'd already moved on to the next camera. Back then I was using very low value, affordable cameras, and so I didn't have any particular camera insurance, and I just thought if I lost it I can probably claim on the house insurance. This may be true for many of you where you don't have specific camera insurance and you just hope if ever you lost your equipment that it'd be covered on your home insurance. It's probably worth checking on your home insurance if you have a particular limit for certain items, and also whether you're covered if you're away from your home. So 2 scenarios could be: if your house is broken into and your cameras were taken, that should definitely be covered under your home insurance, assuming you've got home insurance. If, however, you're out on the streets of London, in our example, and someone came up to you and snatched the camera out of your hand, are you still covered under your home insurance? Again, I'm no expert, but it's definitely worth checking, especially if you're walking around with a red badge on your camera, or any high-end camera for that matter. It's probably worth checking your house insurance to check that you are definitely covered. If you find the value of your camera equipment now is no longer covered because it exceeds the maximum of your home insurance, this is when it's a good time to look at photography specific insurance. I'll come on to some examples in the UK at the end of the video, so stay with me. I'll try and get to this very dry topic as soon as I can. I'm even wearing black because it's less exciting than normal. They just happen to be a clean top. Okay, so as we've said, option 1, photography equipment insurance for hobbyists or anybody, but it only covers your equipment. So that covers you if you're only a hobbyist and you don't get paid for your work. But what happens if your friend offers to pay you to photograph their wedding? Now you could be classed as a professional and you're getting paid for your photography. As a wedding photographer, there is specific wedding photography insurance. Wedding photography insurance, if you break it down, will include equipment insurance, which we've already covered, and then it also covers public liability insurance. Public liability insurance doesn't relate just to weddings. It's a recommended insurance to have if you are an event photographer or going out to events. it covers you. Let's think of an example. If, for example, you're using off-camera flash and you've got tripods on the dance floor, and then someone on the wedding day trips over your tripod and breaks their wrist, for example, public liability insurance will protect you against the claims made against you by third-party people, as I understand it. As I say, I'm not an expert, but this is how I understand it. So if someone trips over your wires or your camera bag while at an event, a third-party person, and then tries to sue you or claim against you, this insurance will protect you from the claim made against you by a potential third party. This, of course, isn't limited just to photographers. In the wedding situation, you could be the DJ at the wedding, for example, and you've got all your decks on the front, and you've got all your speaker stands. And then again, if someone trips over your cable going up to one of your speakers, again, I think you need public liability insurance, or it's highly recommended, just so you're covered in that scenario. If you ever look at kind of professional DJs at weddings or very experienced photographers, you'll see they use kind of thick gaffer tape to tape down all the cables to try to make sure there's no chance of anybody slipping on anything or tripping over anything. You're at minimal risk of anybody ever kind of accidentally injuring themselves as a direct link to your own equipment. So that's public liability insurance. And then the third insurance I'm going to cover in this video is professional indemnity insurance. What is professional indemnity insurance and who needs it? This would be recommended again, for example, to wedding photographers, and it protects you against someone making a claim against you for something where you didn't fully commit to a promise or a contract. So in the wedding situation, if you take money from a wedding couple in exchange for promising to give them wedding photos, if your SD card's then all corrupted, there's a chance that the wedding couple could sue you for kind of damages or for not receiving their wedding photos. Professional indemnity insurance protects you from people making claims against you in those situations. As I say, I'm not an expert and I'm not trying to be an expert. That is just my best understanding of those three types of insurance and kind of who needs them. Because I do wedding photography as well as portrait photography, I needed my photography equipment insurance, I needed my public liability insurance, and I needed my professional indemnity insurance. With those three covers provided in my overall photography insurance package, hopefully I'm reasonably safe that I'm not going to get sued, I'm not going to have claims against me, and if I lose any of my equipment, the cost of that equipment will be covered. Now, depending on how many cameras and lenses you've got will determine how much your annual photography insurance will cost you. If you've got a lot of cameras and lenses, you can have a high price to pay to cover the high cost of those items, and if you're insuring less, obviously you'll get a cheaper annual cover price. Now, for the companies that offer photography insurance, each of them do things slightly differently. When I used to occasionally write for UK photography magazines, kind of technical articles, I used to buy the magazines to see my picture in the magazine or the article and to read through. They're always very enjoyable. If you're looking for photography insurance in the UK, a couple of common names could be something like PhotoGuard, which I used to see on the back pages of the photography magazines. And another popular name you see cropping up all the time is Aaduki Multimedia Insurance. I compared the quote prices and I decided to go with Aaduki Multimedia Insurance, and I've been with them since 2014. They provide me with my photography equipment insurance, my public liability insurance, and my professional indemnity insurance all in one package. The way their service works is you can choose what to insure and what not to insure. So for example, you could choose to insure your computer and your photography editing software. You can insure your phone, film developing kit. If you've got, say, a home darkroom, you can literally specify everything you want to include and everything you don't want to include. The way Aaduki Insurance works is everything worth more than £1,000 in value, you have to list separately on a spreadsheet, and you need to describe the item and then put the serial number of that item and its price. So for example, on my list I'd have the Leica M6 and the Noctilux, because both of these items are more than £1,000 in value. And then anything under £1,000 in value, you have like a pool of money which covers all the kind of the less than £1,000 value items. That's how Aaduki work, but then different companies offer a different structure depending on the insurers that you look to go with. As mentioned earlier in the video, I can choose to insure mine at new price or at used price. So I insure all my equipment at the second-hand price, and that helps me reduce my insurance premiums because the total value is going to be lower if I price everything at today's rate and not at the new price some years ago. Again, taking Aaduki Multimedia Insurance as an example, you then have a total value which you can insure at your premises, so at your house where you keep all your kit, but then you also need to specify how much is the total value of equipment you're ever going to take out of the house and have on your person at one time. So for example, if I'm going to shoot a wedding, if I've got multiple like camera bodies, digital bodies, I'll have multiple lenses for different focal lengths. I'll probably have Leica film camera bodies, and I'll probably have medium format film camera bodies. I like to offer clients medium format film, 35mm film, and then I shoot obviously digital for everything else. Once you add all that amount up, that's the amount you need to insure as what you would carry when away from home. If you're not a professional photographer and you only shoot for fun, the maximum you'll carry away from your house is probably whatever you can fit in your camera bag when you go either on holiday or you go for a day out to do some photography. Just try to kind of add up what's the maximum value of the kit that you ever take out at one time. That value then goes into my insurance policy is the maximum amount I'm covered if I go out of the house. This brings me back to the start of the video where I suddenly realised it's quite scary how much these things add up. And if I'm shooting weddings, sometimes I have a ton of kit with me. It really does open your eyes to quite how much of a liability you are in terms of carrying a lot of cameras with you out in the public. And then the way Aaduki Multimedia also work is they'll also cover me for worldwide cover for 60 days outside of the UK. So that can be 60 days in one go, or it can be 60 one-day trips when I go to Poland and things like that. So do check with your own insurance providers, or when you're looking to get quotes online. Aaduki are only UK based, so I'll put a link to Aaduki in the description below. But if you live in, say, the US, just find your local insurance provider, for example. But do check you've got worldwide cover if you're outside of your home country. Check if you need to specify the amounts outside of your original premises, if you need to list that separately. Check if your camera equipment is covered if you leave it in your car and you're not at your car. Do read the small print, and then that helps you determine whether camera insurance A provider is better than camera insurance B provider. It's also worth pointing out that some photography insurers cover drone cover, and then other photography insurers don't cover drone cover. So I think my particular policy doesn't cover me for the use of flying drones. So if you're a drone user, do check your policy. I probably just chose the policy that was cheapest and didn't include drones. Is anybody still awake? Like, hello. So if this is a dull video and there's no photos of very pretty ladies, but I thought it was quite important to share with you guys, or to make the video, because this topic doesn't seem to be covered very much by other photographers. So let's just summarize. If you only use low value camera equipment, there's a good chance you can get that covered on your home insurance, but do check that you're covered when you're away from the house. If you're a hobbyist photographer and you have more expensive equipment, again check if your high value equipment is still covered on your home insurance. If you're getting paid for any of your photography work and you're invited to shoot at, say, a wedding venue, some wedding venues will not let you go to their premises until you show them a copy of your insurance to show that you've got public liability insurance. I know this from experience from going to shoot at different venues. Some clients will not work with you unless you've got public indemnity insurance. I used to provide workshops for a particular company, photography workshops for individuals coming from that company, and I could only be a supplier to that company if I had public indemnity insurance. So do check if you're getting paid for your work that you have the right insurance, just to make sure you're kind of safe. And then, as I say, if you live in the UK, I've already mentioned this to my patrons, but I do recommend Aaduki Multimedia Insurance. They didn't ask me to do this video, I just thought it'd be useful, and every time I ring them up to find out some information about my policy or to renew, all the customer service people are kind of really professional and really, I'd say, well spoken. I don't know how they recruit their staff, and they've not asked me to say this, it's just kind of an observation, but they seem to just recruit really nicely spoken people that you could happily talk to all day. Can you relate to that without it sounding cheesy? It's not like a cheap call centre in a third world country where they can't understand what you're saying and they can't speak your language. So just an observation. Originally I'd have thought it was one really smart person on the end of the phone, but after ringing up over, as I say, since 2014, they seem to have a room of very polite, well-spoken people, which is always a pleasure to talk to them. And as I say, that they didn't ask me to make this video, and this is in no way a sponsored video. I just thought I'd try and help you guys out if you're in the UK. That being said, if you are in the UK and you do decide to go with Aaduki Multimedia, if you happen to mention my name, I think I do get a small kickback on my 2022 insurance policy. So if you want to help out the channel, mention Matt Osborne or Matthew Osborne, that would really help me out, so thanks. Obviously this video was fairly tough going and there's a lot of information. I'm not an expert, but if you've got any simple questions, I'm happy to answer them in the comments below, like I do in all the video comments. I was up at 4 AM last night trying to reply to comments because I was a bit behind on the comments. But yeah, any questions, let me know. If you enjoyed this video and you found it useful, please hit the like button. As you know, it really helps out the channel, as I say, more than you guys may think. If people are liking your videos, then YouTube shows your video to more people, and then you get more views, and that really helps the algorithm. So now I kind of make a purposeful decision. If I'm watching other videos, if I like the content, I always hit the like button, because I hope they would do the same to me if they like my content. So that's kind of how I do my YouTube watching now as well. So that's it. I'll try and bring a more interesting video to you in the next episode in a few days. I might do this as a bonus video if I've got time, and potentially try to make another video for tomorrow, depending on how long this takes. I talk for too long, so it's going to take me longer to edit, but I'll try and do this as a bonus video, so it'll still average as 2 videos every 7 days. I'll try. I'll do my best. And with that said, big thanks to my Patreons. The numbers are still going up gradually. People come and go depending on if they like the content, but overall the numbers are slowly increasing. So thanks for your support. It really means a lot. That's it. I'll shut up. Bye.